Welcome to the Disruptor Network podcast.
Welcome back to the Disruptors Network podcast. And we have one of our best guests to date today with David Meltzer. I'm super excited about this. David is the co-founder of Sports One Marketing, formerly served as CEO of the renowned Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment agency, which was the inspiration for the movie Jerry Maguire, if you've ever seen it. David and his partner were the inspiration for that film. David has been recognized by Variety magazine as their Sports Humanitarian of the Year and awarded the Ellis Medal of Honor. He's also the executive producer of the Bloomberg and Apple TV series 2-Minute Drill and Office Hours. His life mission is to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. This simple yet powerful mission has led him to an incredible journey to provide one thing: value. In all of his contact and communication, that's exactly what you'll receive. As a part of his mission for the past 20 years, he's been providing free weekly trainings to empower others to be happy. So I'm super excited about this. I have a million questions for us, and we're going to get to it right now. And without further ado, David Meltzer.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Welcome back to the Disruptors Network podcast, and I'm really, really excited to have David Meltzer with us today. David, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
You know, I'm looking forward to this. I'm a sports guy, but I'm also somebody who really resonates with your story from 2008. I've been in mortgages since 2001, so I went through the market crash, the same thing you did. Can you just talk a little bit about what that was like for you and how you kind of rebounded and rebuilt after 2008 and losing everything and declaring bankruptcy and going through all that?
Yeah, what's so interesting is that, as you know, the people that made it through and didn't get hurt were people that have already had established and taken stock in their own values. And the reason that I lost everything, over $100 million, by the way, was because I had lost my values. I was serving the wrong God. I had served that God since I was 5 years old, the God of money. And I always say that everybody serves a God, even the atheists serve a God. They may not know what God they're serving, but I was serving the wrong God. And it was actually 2 years before I lost everything in 2008 that I started to establish and take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become. And so I actually was prepared to lose everything. I wish I hadn't created the causes and could have recuperated and learned the lessons earlier. But I take full accountability. And in that, what I mean is I know what I did to participate in losing everything. And more importantly, I gained the knowledge, the lessons from losing everything, from losing and taking stock in who I am, that allowed me over the last 16 years, since 2006, to rebuild everything in the right way, to serve the right God, the omniscient, all-powerful, all-knowing God, to become a resource of that source, to help other people make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. And I've been able to do that myself by making it all back in a much more efficient, effective, and statistically successful way, with passion, purpose, and profitability in mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I didn't lose 100 million, but I lost everything too during it. So again, a lot of what I've
everything's
heard,
everything. Man.
Everything's everything.
We both know exactly what it feels like to have nothing. It doesn't matter what you had before. Trust me.
So for me, a lot of the things afterwards that kind of held me back was my pride was in the way, and I didn't want to admit I failed, and I want to admit I lost everything. And did you go through something similar? And how do you kind of look at that now?
I always tell people worrying and complaining have a duplicative negative. Not only does it interfere with our success and potential, but it is actually wishing for what we don't want. So my greatest fear throughout my life was to go bankrupt. My greatest fear, because money was my God, was to lose all my money. My greatest fear was to lose my identity, and my identity was money. So to claim bankruptcy was a test of who I was, because my entire life I tried to get more wealthy, more happy, more worthy by my money. And I thought that money bought love or happiness. And so for me, my low, even though I had taken stock in who I was 2 years earlier, imagine this: over $100 million, golf course, ski mountain, 33 homes in San Diego alone. I had so much property in Montana, I think alone it'd be worth over 100 million today, just from the properties I had bought in Montana in the early 2000s. But more importantly, I went from a kid who only wanted to be rich to buy his mom a house and a car. That's the only reason I wanted to be rich. I grew up in Akron, Ohio. My mom packed my dinner in a paper bag, worked 2 jobs, and she empowered me to be rich. Only reason was my only time of unhappiness was financial insecurity. I had to go not only tell Leigh Steinberg, the most notable sports agent in the world, the reason he hired me was my credibility of helping kids make money. But now I had to go tell my mom that I was bankrupt. But not only did I have to tell my mom I was bankrupt, I did not, because I bought that house for my mom at 24, I did not take my mom's house out of my name. So now I was bankrupt and my mom had to move because I lost her house in the bankruptcy as well. So talk about humility.
It doesn't get worse, right?
It did not get worse, but I'll tell you, it was the greatest moment of my transition because it reinforced what I was on a path to. Because when I told my mom in tears, she answered the door, "Mom, I lost everything. I went bankrupt." Well, first I was crying. She said, "Are you okay? Are the kids okay? Is your wife okay?" "No, Mom, I lost everything." And she looked at me and I said, and you have to move. I lost your house. She looked at me and she said, no, are you okay? Do you need anything? I said, "Mom, did you hear me? You need to move. I have screwed up everything. I'm a loser. I'm a failure." She said, whoa. "Do you need any money? Are you okay?" And I realized at that time that I was serving the wrong God, that I was not only blessed with such an extraordinary mom, but I was also blessed with a source, a God, whatever you define it as, spiritually, religiously, theoretically, I don't care. But I was blessed. I was always protected and promoted by my mom. And now I realized that I was connected to an omniscient, all-powerful, all-knowing source, and it was protecting and promoting me as well by teaching me the lesson of humility so that I could build back what I had by knowing that I'm happy, healthy, wealthy, and worthy already. I just had to figure out what I was doing to interfere with it.
Yeah, that really puts a lot to perspective, right? When your mom's like, "Are you okay? Are you just okay?" It's not about all this other stuff. So, and again, I think that for me too, like you, that was the best moment of my life. I didn't know it at the time, but it was the best thing that happened to me. Your mission now is to help 1 billion people, right, be happy, and you speak on stages all over the world. And I just got finished reading your book, Game Time Decision Making, and you said something at one point during the book that really like hit home with me. You had this, you were preparing to speak in front of a large crowd, and you went to your business partner, Warren Moon, and you said, how do you do this in front of big crowds? Like, what do you kind of do before you do that? And you really simplified it, but if you could just tell the audience what your answer was to, like, how do you simplify getting on stage and not being nervous to talk to all these people?
Yeah, it's practice, right? It has to do with clapping your hands, I call it. And, I actually have another story where I invite my kids. I think was at Sydney's theater with 22,000 people, and my kids were just amazed. They're like, "How do you do this?" Right? And how does Warren Moon step into 1 billion people on the TV and, hundreds of thousands of people cheering for him? Well, I asked my kids to come on stage with me. And just as if Warren had asked me to come on the field with him and clap my hands once. And my kids were like, "What?" I said, "Come on stage, just clap your hands once and get off stage. Would you be nervous?" And they're like, "No, I can go on stage and clap." Right? I go, why is that? They're like, "Because I know how to clap. I can clap in my sleep. I can clap with my eyes closed. I can clap face backwards on one foot with, And I said, well, every time I give a speech, I want to be at a comfort level, an expertise, well rehearsed and practiced to a point that it's the same feeling as clapping. There's no doubt when I step on a stage that I'm going to teach the lessons and tell the stories to help empower, by the way, over 1 billion people. I don't let people limit me, man. Life's about killing off our limitations. Nothing's going to create resistance. So, if you are not prepared to the point of clapping, then you are not prepared.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that made it really simple for me. You're like, just clap for me once. And like, that's easy. I can do that. Or if you could do that, I can do the rest of it. So that was great. You're mentoring a lot of people. And I actually know somebody that you mentor and he's great. And I see you kind of all over doing that. How important is it to you to secure power from mentors? And how do you suggest somebody does it?
It's so important, number one, before you get a mentor, to know what you want. what you want personally, experientially, giving and receiving, then it's a possibility. So most people live in nothingness. Nothingness looks like procrastination or feeling overwhelmed. If you want to move out of nothingness into possibility, then find out and ask yourself what you want today in a trajectory towards unrealistic goals in the future, like empowering over 1 billion people, that people will laugh at you, scoff at you, make fun of you, or being an NFL star, right? I wanted to be an NFL star. So every day I knew what I wanted personally, experientially, giving and receiving wise. And the next step to become a probability, need to know who you can help with what you want and who can help you. So at 5 years old, when I said to myself, personally, experientially, giving and receiving, this is what I need to do today to be a professional football player. And I'm going to help my mom by being a professional football player, because I'll be able to buy a house and a car. And I'm going to go seek the best running backs in the world to tell me and give me directions on how to get there. My possibility when I did that at a young age became a probability. Now, you have an energetic and genetic inheritance, but the greatest lesson was my trajectory was this unbelievable thing that people laughed at me every time I stepped on a football field, scoffed at me and made fun of me. But because I used those daily practices of what and who, my possibility to probability, I didn't procrastinate, I didn't feel overwhelmed, I wasn't scared. I ended up learning all of the greatest lessons to apply to something I was energetically and genetically inheriting, right? Things like sales, things like operational business, things like academic, intellectual reasoning, things that I was born into a higher level of performance other than being a professional football player. So why you need mentorship is it's the second step. Once you know what you want, the easiest way to get there is find someone that's already there and ask them for directions. It's so easy. And then you can take those directions and teach other people and help them with it. So it's not just for you, it's through you that you get mentorship. So I take the basic necessities of life first and always have a mentor in the basic necessities life. What is that? Well, you die if you don't eat. So I have a health mentor, a nutrition mentor, right? Which includes the second necessity, which is hydration. You die if you don't drink. So I have a health one for that. Then you die if you don't breathe. So I have a breathing mentor, a meditation mentor to teach me to breathe. And then finally, most overlooked by everyone, for 16 years, I've had a sleep mentor. A third of my life is spent sleeping.
Interesting.
I believe that most people go to bed at night and wake up in the morning more tired than they went to bed, which 100%. Is the dumbest thing I've ever heard for a third of your life to waste that much time. I have a sleep coach, a sleep mentor to make sure that I plateau and grow every day. I don't live my life like a tube, food in, food out. Most people push a boulder every day to the top of the hill just to have it roll back down. Not me. I use these mentors, these coaches. Then, of course, I go ahead and pick different business aspects, family aspects, and health aspects that I get mentorship to get me to where I want to be faster.
That's awesome. That's an awesome answer. And sleep is so important. And I've always played sports as well, and sleep was always my problem. That was always the one recovery thing that I didn't do well. And I think that you're talking about something that's very relevant, that you're mastering something that really helps your body. It helps you to be your optimal person every single day, but everybody ignores it.
Yeah. And you access information without your ego, without your conscious. So where I really have developed the sleep over the years is initially, of course, it was to get better rest, to recover faster and have more energy the next day. But what I learned was that I'm accessing information. I call them downloads. When you unwind, see, my tomorrow starts to get today. Your spouse or your intimate partner is going to say, oh my God, what are we going to do about that bill? Or what are we going to do about our daughter? She's dropping out, whatever it is. That's when all this serious conversations, that's not in my house anymore. I have an unwinding routine to make sure I clear the interference so that when I wake up, I use my meditation in order to transcend the information I received without my conscious fears getting in my way.
Another thing that I've heard you kind of speak about a lot, and you've mentioned already once in this interview where you talked about, I won't let anybody limit me. How do you become more self-aware so you can get rid of limiting beliefs?
Yeah. So I have a 4-step process. The
Okay.
first is practice identifying the limiting beliefs, the ego-based consciousness. Let me give them to you from my list of memorization of practice. So the need to be right limits you. The need to be offended limits you. The need to be superior. The need to be inferior. The need to be separate. The need to be anxious, angry, frustrated, worried, complaining. The need to be resentful, guilty. All of these things limit you. And when you care about what other people think, what's missing or what you don't want, now you're limiting yourself even more, giving resistance. So what I do is I practice identifying these needs of the ego to limit ourselves, to be afraid. Then what do? Instead of resisting it, which is my natural intuition, instead of going over it, under it, through it, fighting it, lying to it, manipulating it, cheating it, overselling it, back end selling it, all of these different things I used to do, which it actually was accelerating me into more of the fear, into more of the limitation. All I do is stop. I stop and I breathe through my nose and out through my mouth, which drops me down to center, to neutral, puts me into the flow, clears that negativity and fear out of my existence, allows me to connect to and through the greatest source of power, omniscient, all-knowing power that I'm connected to and through at all times. And then what do? I remind, remember, and recollect what I want, who I can help, who can help me, how best to get it done, reprioritizing what's important to me, not other people, not what's missing or what I don't want. And instead of searching for a why, I apply my why with the what, the who, the how, and the now, applying my why. So in other words, when I identify these fear, these ego-based consciousness, these limitations, I know my mind, my body, and my soul are on fire. And I know when you catch on fire, you got to stop, you got to drop, and you got to roll.
I love it. I love that. And I think that's a problem for all of us. I think you're right. Like, and it's funny because you talk about the breathing in your book, and you say 6 deep breaths into your nose after, I know that in my brain, and you reminded me to start doing it again. And it really makes me feel so much better on a daily basis. And I think, and I want to ask you a question kind of about mindset, and we're getting towards the close. But you say something in your book about at some point you had gotten overweight, and you're like, what am I doing? I'm going to go back to the gym tomorrow. And you're like, I'm just going to go to the gym and check it out. And you got there and you got on the elliptical machine and you're like, this is too slow. So I have to go faster. Right. But do you think that's just something in your athletic background or your competitive background that enables you to always want more? Or is that something that you've grown over the years and you've become? Like, how do you develop that mindset?
So I think number one, understanding that you're in control of your mindset, you're in control of your heart set, and you're in control of your handset. So when you realize that I give meaning to everything I see, I'm in control of these things, regardless of the accelerated changes that are always certainly to appear. The only certainty that we have is the 24 hours that we're given in a day and the certainty of accelerated change tomorrow, the relativity of time, which will change. So when you take control of these things, I think that there's an energetic and genetic inheritance that applies to all three. And I think that you can practice whatever your genetic and energetic inheritance is to reach your potential. So for example, in football, it probably is the closest, because of my mindset, heart set, and handset, probably the closest to my potential that I could have reached because of my energetic and genetic athletic inheritance to play football. But that same methodology in other areas where I was blessed to have more skills, more knowledge, which, by the way, skills and knowledge determine your basement. So some people's basements are just higher than other people's basement. For example, Ryan Leaf, he was a client of ours for the San Diego Chargers. His basement in football was much, much higher than my basement in football. But my desire put me closer to my potential than Ryan Leaf's desire. And if he had way more potential than he actually executed on, even though pragmatically he was a much better football player than I ever could be. We need to know that we have control of the mindset, the heart set, and the handset. And by utilizing what we have control of, by enjoying the consistent everyday, persistent without quit, pursuit of our potential, utilizing what we're in control of, mindset, handset, and heart set, we're able to be more efficient, effective, and statistically successful in our trajectory towards these unrealistic relative things in our lives that we're allowed to change our mind about. And that's a real key component in my life is I know what to do today. I'm certain of it. I'm pragmatic. It's very realistic. Anyone looks at my calendar with me, they'll say, yep, you can do that phone call. Yep, you can go ahead and do that interview. Yep, you're able to run 3.5 miles today and stretch. Oh, yep, you can meditate. But when I start going farther and farther from today into relativity, into dreams, I don't know what I really want. But today, everything I do is trajectory, is aiming towards what I think I want. And then tomorrow morning, I'll reassess it. And I'm allowed to change my mind from the lessons I've learned.
That's awesome. And that's, I think it's a really good explanation of it. And the sports analogy really helps me, especially when you talk about what somebody's basement is a little further away. But I think you're right. I think your desire got you closer than you probably ever should have been, because you wanted it more. But David, you were amazing. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. What's the best way that our audience can support you? I know you have a great YouTube channel, that's David Meltzer, and you have a great book out right now that I've read. I don't know if you have some more coming. I know you have a TV show coming. What's the best way we can support you?
Yeah, well, I have podcasts, TV shows, books. I speak, I coach, but I do free trainings every Friday, and the replays, are on my top 50 podcasts in the world. So email me. That's what's the best way. If you need a book and can't afford it, I'll sign a book, send it to you, pay for shipping. I don't care. I have these exercises and guides, the 5 daily practices. You want the templates that I use. I give everything in my mission to others. So just Google me, David Meltzer, go to every platform, David Meltzer, or email me directly, david@dmeltzer.com, David at my first initial, last name, dmeltzer.com.
David, thank you again so much. I really, really appreciate all your time.
You got it, my friend. Let's do this again. Thank you. Thank you, Eagle the Seagull. I will talk to you guys later.
Thank you, David. Take care.